Good morning. Looking to have members attend the Appropriations Committee. We are ready to begin. Waiting on members. Good morning. We are going to begin as a subcommittee. Today is April 13th. This is the Appropriations Committee, and we will begin with Mr. Jeffries this morning. And I do encourage my colleagues to make their way to the Appropriations Committee room so that we can establish a quorum. In the meantime, we will begin as a subcommittee. Mr. Jeffries, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I told you earlier, I'll make this a 30-second presentation. This bill will not occur, the effects of this bill policy will not occur unless it is funded by the federal government. And if it appears that it is not going to be funded by the federal government, we will pull the bill as it moves through the House or the Senate, if it does. And we are taking amendments that were recommended during the Policy Committee hearing. Previously, I don't believe you have those amendments. However, they do state that there will be no state funding for this, and it will be solely dependent on federal funding. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Jeffries, for your presentation. That measure will remain on the suspense file. Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Ng in the audience? Very good. Mr. Hernandez, it's your lucky day. Come on up. No, but you have, try that.
All right. Good morning. I've come before you today because I'm looking at my committees, and as they're moving now through the Appropriations Committee, I've had a little bit of difficulty in understanding they're being keyed by your committee staff as fiscal. It has been my hearted attempt and desire to make sure that the bills that we produce out of my office have a clear intent in reducing costs for the state while improving the quality of life for Californians. And as such, we've provided Bill AB 185 that speaks to maternity care. And what we're finding here is an opportunity for the state to reduce its current and ongoing expenditures for women that don't have maternity care and where the tab is being picked up by county and state agencies. This bill would alleviate that expenditure from the state and would be consistent by providing the basic health requirements as required in the in the Affordable Care Act, Health Care Act. So this is consistent with, again, reducing costs, making sure that there's a baseline standard of health care. We're trying to, again, to get a better understanding. Our goal is to make sure that California is moving in a healthy way and mindful of, again, costs and expenditures. Also wanted to come to speak to you before AB 321, which again has...
Mr. Fernandez, we will take them item by item. So you are presenting on Assembly Bill 185. Do you have witnesses in support?
Yes, we do.
Very good. Your first witness?
National Organization for Women. And, you know, by the age of 44, 81% of women in the U.S. are mothers. In California, nearly 1 million of these women are enrolled in health care plans that fail to cover maternity services. And our state's high level of a preterm and underweight births can be closely attributed to the lack of sufficient and comprehensive health care. The average baby that's born without health care costs the state about $15,000 versus $600 for full-term newborns. So the support of this bill is really encouraged on behalf of the National Organization of Women in California.
Very good. Thank you for the presentation. Additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Sorry, Kristen Hare, California Academy of Family Physicians. We'll make sure that the committee has our letter as well as the author, but we are in support.
Very good. Additional witnesses? Hearing and seeing none. Department of Finance, do you have a file?
No, Mr. Chair. Ken DeRosa with the Department of Finance. We do not have a file on this bill.
Very good. Mr. Hernandez, on this measure, as you're probably aware, it's subject to the California Health Benefits Review Program, affectionately known as JBERP. And anytime you have that sort of analysis, it's an automatic candidate for suspense. But we will absolutely look at this measure. Thank you for bringing it forward. I think it's a very important measure. With that, let's move on to your next bill. This will remain on suspense. We're now presenting on Assembly Bill 321.
Well, if I may add before you close on 185, JBERP has identified that this would be one of the, this maternity care would be part of the basic health plan, and they've identified that it would not cost and bring additional costs to the state of California. That's in JBERP's findings. So I just want to make sure that that's on the record before we move forward.
Very good. We'll take that into consideration. Thank you. Assembly Bill 321.
Assembly Bill 321 is my sexting bill, and it speaks to protecting a juvenile and the movement electronically of offensive and obscene material via what's most commonly used as cell phones, smartphones. This bill has been keyed as non-fiscal, non-mandate. This is a bill that encourages school districts to educate and to take advantage of federal dollars, grant dollars that are available for such programming. There is no mandate here. And again, trying to find the rationale behind keying this one as fiscal because it is not a requirement. Currently, today, school districts find themselves, most with school district counselors, school-based counselors, and most districts find themselves with school psychologists there for the purpose of providing these counseling services where private families can't provide for those services. Again, would like the committee, the finance element of the committee, to provide me, better explanation as to where this cost is derived from, because I'm not seeing any empirical data that supports that, and I'd like to, get some more information. We want to make it a better bill. We'd like to have the opportunity to make it a better bill. I understand that going to suspense provides for that, but we definitely would love to have some direction and an understanding of where your analysis is based from.
Very good. Thank you. Do you have witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance, can you help us understand some of the cost pressure here as a matter of codifying the proposal here?
I think as Mr. Hernandez has indicated, there is not a mandate to offer the instruction. However, our staff believe that it could create general fund cost pressures for Prop 98, the millions of dollars for the state to fund such instruction. Additionally, the Judicial Council has not provided a fiscal estimate of the bill. However, we believe that requiring the courts to order specified additional sanctions for minors convicted of these offenses would not be significant.
Very good. Thank you. Members, any questions? Very good. This, would you like to close? I'm sorry, Ms. Harkey.
I appreciate you bringing this bill forward, and I look forward to working with you to try to make it happen. I think it's a good beginning first step. Quite honestly, I think we should check the cell phones and everything at the door when we enter the classroom, and probably when we enter school grounds, pick them up on the way out. But that's just me. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Harkey. Again, I just ask for your thoughtful consideration as it moves through the process, and we look forward to working closely, my staff and myself, and identifying better ways of improving this bill and making sure that we're identifying any cost issues that may be present.
Very good. Thank you. Your next bill is Assembly Bill 478.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill speaks to the funding formula for community colleges. It has not been identified from Ledge Council as a fiscal bill. This bill speaks to the driving demand that's seen by the community colleges when unemployment rises. This bill seeks to just change the funding formula that doesn't mandate the state or any governmental agency to increase funding today. It just, again, realigns the understanding that as the unemployment rate increases, there's a greater demand on our higher ed institutions. This bill particularly focuses on the community college community, and we're hoping to make sure that that we're identifying that demand and we're speaking to it by way of formula and removing the caps that exist and that are locked in at the point of the 5% marker. This allows for a 7% when unemployment is at 7% and beyond. That the Board of Governors are able to revisit the formula and to increase and augment, again, addressing the higher demand of community colleges wanting to reprogram, strengthen, finding a new career path, and retooling their skill set.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. I just want to draw your attention to page 2 of your bill. It is keyed fiscal from Ledge Council. You have witnesses in support?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Christy Baumer representing the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges. As members of a fiscal committee, you would appreciate making fiscal decisions based on the realities that are out there. And so all this bill does is give you information in your budgeting process that reflects the real economy. Ask for your support.
Very good. Thank you. Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Hearing and seeing none. Department of Finance, do you have a file on this measure?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The bill would create a Prop 98 general fund cost pressure in the tens to hundreds of millions of dollars by expanding the community college growth rate to include the entire state unemployment rate. The calculated apportionment for 11-12 under current law is 3.1%, which equates to approximately $181 million Prop 98 general fund. Applying the current unemployment rate of approximately 12% to the requirements of the bill would generate a growth rate of 13.1%, which would equate to approximately $763 million.
Very good. Thank you. Members, questions for the author? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Hernandez, would you like to close?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this bill is a good cousin to the health bill, where we'll find savings in my health bill. I think there's an opportunity to move those savings in the direction of making sure that we're prioritizing the use of our existing dollars here in the state of California. People are out of work. People are trying to improve their employability. We need a California workforce that's educated, that's ready to go, and our dollars should reflect California's priorities with regard to making sure that we're ready to go as a workforce. Thank you very much for your time.
Very good. Thank you for bringing these good measures forward. We will look forward to working with you as these items are dealt with in the suspense calendar. Thank you. Very good. We will go to our next author. Is Mr. Ng in the room? All right. Yeah, that's very good. Dr. Pan. And Mr. Jones, if you would sign in just so we don't lose track of you, because we do have oh, very good. Very good. Great. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Pan.
Good morning.
We ready?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Yes. So I'm here to, Mr. Chair and members, I'm here to present to you Assembly Bill 301, a simple but critical measure for ensuring the continuity of care as maintained for children who have severe chronic illnesses in the California Children's Services Program, or CCS. In fact, CCS, since 1994, has had an important partnership with the managed care plans to protect children who have these conditions, and since then have been, because these children, given their conditions and the importance of trying to access really specialized care, have been carved out of managed care. Basically, when the legislature first carved it out in 1994, the authorization did create a sunset, and each time it's been extended. However, this bill would actually extend the sunset again to January 1st, 2018. Now, the reason for that particular date is that the Department of Health Care Services is doing a series of pilots through the Section 1115 Medi-Cal demonstration waiver. And we believe at that date, basically, the pilots would be complete and there would be an opportunity for an evaluation. So at that point in time, we can see what are the best possible options for both maintaining quality care and cost effectiveness. But I think at this point in time, there is no reason we believe that we should continue a very successful program until we have the opportunity to basically see the results of the pilot and its evaluation. So I hope that appreciate your support for passing out AB 301. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Pan. Your first witness in support?
Hi, Erin Auber-Givens with the Children's Specialty Care Coalition. We represent the pediatric subspecialists based at the children's hospitals around the state in strong support.
Very good. Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Department of Finance?
Yes, the Department of Health Care Services indicates that the bill has an indeterminate fiscal impact. Carve-outs for certain services from managed care capitated rates may help to ensure access to those services and limit risk to managed care plans. However, the carve-outs also likely increase cost pressures on the Medi-Cal program.
Very good. Thank you. Members, the measure has been moved. Looking for a second. Oh, very good. Before we can do that, let's go ahead and establish a quorum. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Winters.
Here.
Harkey. Here. Bloomingfield. Bradford. Here. Calderon. Campos. Davis. Donnelly. Here. Gatto. Here. Hall. Here. Hill. Here. Lara. Mitchell. Here. Nielsen. Here. Norby. Solario. Wagner.
Very good. We have a quorum. The measure has been moved by Ms. Harkey, seconded by Mr. Hall. Would you like to close?
Well, I'd appreciate, again, your support for passing this out of appropriations. Your aye vote. Thank you.
Very good. That measure is out on an A roll call. Do pass. Very good. Dr. Pan, you have an item for suspense. Do you care to waive presentation, or would you like to present on
I would waive presentation.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, my apologies. I inadvertently skipped over you. I apologize for that. Come on up, and let's go ahead and go through Mr. Wagner's bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Next time I'll sign in pinch hitting for Mr. Wagner. So
very good. Thank you.
Transfer by will makes a property subject to statutory probate fees of thousands of dollars. Establishing a revocable trust can cost well over $1,000 if done by a reputable attorney, and can place the prospective trustor at the mercy of scam artists if it is not. Other alternatives generally suffer from problems of cost, complexity, tax implications, irrevocability, and a combination of all these issues. Enactment of AB 699 will fill a major gap in estate planning instruments available to ordinary citizens by providing a straightforward, inexpensive, and reliable means of passing real property directly to a beneficiary. To go along with the many options California citizens currently have to pass personal property to their loved ones outside of the long, complicated, and expensive probate process. The bill is particularly intended for the benefit of senior citizens whose estate consists primarily or even exclusively of the family home, of which there are thousands of elderly people throughout the state who are barely getting by, but whose home, purchased long ago and paid off, may be worth several hundreds of thousands of dollars. Also benefiting are the unmarried homeowners who wish to leave their home to their partner.
Move the bill.
Thank you. Mr. Larry Doyle here from the California Bar Association is available to answer any questions if there happen to be any.
Very good. The measure has been moved by Mr. Gatto, seconded by Mr. Donnelly. Your first witness in support?
Larry Doyle on behalf of the Conference of California Bar Associations. Just a couple of quick points. Revocable transfer on trust deeds that this bill would authorize have been used successfully for over 21 years now in 13 separate states. The National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws last year culminated 5 years of study by releasing the Uniform Real Property Transfer on Death Act, which is based upon revocable transfer on trust deeds or death deeds, and is urging all states to adopt it. American Bar Associations endorsed this concept. And just to be safe, in case what has worked so well in other states doesn't work here in California, in light of some concerns, the bill does contain a sunset clause and will be repealed on its own power after 3 years unless the legislature chooses to renew it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to ask.
Very good. Thank you. Any additional witnesses in support?
Yes, thank you. I'm Boyce Hinman. I'm with California Communities United Institute, and I do urge you to approve this bill. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your testimony. Witnesses in opposition. Department of Finance?
Any costs would be for the Law Revision Commission, and those would be minor and absorbable within existing resources.
Very good. Mr. Jones, would you like to close for Mr. Wagner's Assembly Bill 699?
I thank you for the committee's time today, and an urgent aye vote. Thank you very much.
Very good. That measure is out on an A roll call. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Ng.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members. I want to first of all thank the committee staff for their work on this bill with us. AB 1101 is a good government bill that will allow for a democratic process of representation on the CalSTRS board, which is the nation's second largest public pension fund. It's got assets totaling over $138 billion. This bill replaces the governor-appointed retiree representative on the board with an elected member to represent the same population. This allows for direct representation of CalSTRS retired members and participants. It does not make any change to the overall makeup of the board, including the state's constitutional officers or other remaining appointees under the governor. It will result in minimal election costs for staff and vendor expenses every 4 years, beginning in 2016. I have with me Jeff Freitas from the California Federation of Teachers, the sponsors of the bill.
Very good.
Thank you.
Freitas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff Freitas with the California Federation of Teachers, and we're proud sponsors of this bill. We've aligned that this election be with the elections of the other members on the board. And just to mention that the 3 current members that are elected, they're elected all by active members. And so the retirees do not have a voice in any of the elections. And then additionally, the cost is very minimal over the four-year period of that term. And we did it to reduce the cost so that the elections are aligned with the other 3 elections. Thank you.
Very good. Next witness in support.
Good morning. Jennifer Baker with the California Teachers Association. We'd like to concur with comments that have previously been stated and say that the CalSTRS board has actually done an excellent job when it comes to ethics and transparency, and we believe enhancing the democratic process within the structure of that board is going to help that to be even more efficient and effective.
Very good. Witnesses in opposition.
Dave Walrath, representing California Retired Teachers Association, in support. There are over 220,000 retirees and beneficiaries in CalSTRS, and they do not have a direct voice through an election of their member. We are in support.
Very good. Any additional witnesses? Department of Finance?
Our comment is that the bill could result in fiscal impact to the state if the new composition of the board sponsors legislation that ultimately leads to increased general fund contributions to CalSTRS.
Very good. Ms. Harkey.
Did we have any witnesses in opposition? I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, there weren't any witnesses.
There weren't. Okay. My problem is exactly what DOF is stating. I think that this should be anyone who is benefiting from the system probably should not be on the representation for the benefit side of it. So as much as I would like to see involvement, and I think you can have involvement, and you do have involvement, as I see throughout the state, I think this is probably one area with the pension problem growing and the amounts coming from the general fund increasing over time, $1.3 billion now, and I know there's some underfunding issues. I really would like to see this kind of stay as it is for a while and let us get the issue under control. it's not just STRS, it's PERS, it's all pension funds. So we have to do, I think as much as we can keep the separation of powers, so to speak, it benefits the state and the taxpayers. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Ng, would you like to close on this measure?
Yes. Thank you. With regard to the last comment, studies have shown that retired members are usually more conservative with the funds that they have jurisdiction over. They don't seek to raise their benefits, but rather to make sure that their benefits are more secure. And with that said, thank you for the question. Respectfully request an aye vote.
I almost took an eye out there, Mr. Ng. Members looking to entertain a motion to move Assembly Bill 1101. Very good. It's been properly moved by Mr. Hall, seconded by Mr. Bradford. That measure is out on a B roll call. Thank you very much, Mr. Ng, for your presentation. Mr. Victor Manuel Perez. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, members. In 2009, the Governor signed AB 1079, authorizing the New River Improvement Project, a collaboration of the California-Mexico Border Relations Council and the California Environmental Protection Agency, and the City of Calexico to develop a strategic plan for the cleanup of the New River, California's most polluted river. Thus far, the New River Improvement Project has secured nearly $5.2 million in support from the State Water Resources Control Board, federal transportation funding, and the State of California River Parkways funding. This bill basically serves as a technical cleanup bill that consolidates all of the technical definitions pertaining to the New River Improvement Project into one public resources code. And I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Perez, for the presentation. We do have a motion and a second. Do you have any witnesses in support?
Not at this time. They weren't able to make it.
Very good. No witnesses in support or opposition. Department of Finance?
No file on this item, Mr. Chair.
Very good. That measure is out on a B roll call. Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you. Thank you, members.
Mr. Mendoza, Assembly Bill 86.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I'm here to present AB 86. This bill will create parity for classified employees when charter schools are established. AB 86 requires that at least one half of permanent classified employees estimated to work at a charter school to sign a petition to start a new charter school. This bill also requires at least 50% of permanent classified employees currently employed at a public school to sign a petition to convert an existing school into a charter school. Classified employees play an important role in our education system by assisting in special education classes with English learners and a variety of other essential duties on our campuses. It is clear that the creation of a charter school will impact classified employees, and I believe that they need to be given a voice in the process, a seat at the table. I would also like to point out that the committee analysis states that the costs associated with AB 86 is minor and absorbable. I do have a few speakers here in support.
Your first witness.
Michelle Cass with the Service Employees International Union. This bill will allow classified employees to participate in the creation of charter schools in the same manner as teachers, and we ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Next witness.
Sarah Flocks from the California Labor Federation in support of this bill. It will give classified employees a voice in the charter school petition process, and we ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Joshua Golko with the California School Employees Association, also in support.
Mr. Chair, Seth Bramble on behalf of the California Teachers Association in support.
Very good. Thank you. Any additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
The bill would result in a reimbursable state mandate and create minor Prop 98 general fund costs for LEAs to review the charter petitions and the signatures of school employees. The costs would vary, though, by LEA depending on the number of charter petitions they review and the number of classified employees collected.
Very good. First witness in opposition.
Cynthia Bryan for the California Charter Schools Association. We're opposed to any changes to the already very burdensome, large petition process. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Mendoza, would you like to close on this measure?
Mr. Chair, just respectfully ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Move the bill.
Very good. The bill has been moved and seconded. The measure is out on a B roll call.
Thank you.
Mr. Knight. Please proceed with Assembly Bill 193. The recommendation is do pass with clarifying amendments.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. AB 193 further protects public safety on Election Day by prohibiting single-family homes of registered sex offenders from holding a polling place at their residence. In an effort to address the concerns of the Department of Justice and committee staff, I've agreed to take the technical amendments which make the Megan's Law website the prescription for
Very good.
deciding.
The bill's been moved by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Mr. Hall. Do you have any witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
Our comment would be that the bill would likely result in a reimbursable state mandate of unknown costs by requiring elections officials to check the address of the potential polling place. We'd note that the California Association of Clerks and Elections Officials indicated, based on the introduced version of the bill, that the requirements of the measure would impose an onerous task and ongoing costs on counties.
Very good. Mr. Knight, you're close.
I think that the amendments have addressed their concerns, and I ask for an aye vote.
Very good. The measure has been properly moved and seconded. It's out on an A roll call with amendments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Assembly Bill 708.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and members. Assembly Bill 708 will protect the privacy of individuals by addressing the current statute of limitations to which a criminal complaint may be filed. Basically, this is statute of limitations on discovery of the crime, and I ask for an aye vote.
Very good. First witness in support.
Mr. Chair and members, good morning. Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association in support of the bill.
Additional witnesses? Witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
The judicial branch indicates the bill has the potential to add to the court caseload, which increases backlogs and could create a pressure on the general fund to handle the caseload. However, we would note that the courts do not typically receive funding on a caseload basis. Therefore, unless this particular caseload becomes significant and can be documented, it is likely to be absorbed.
Very good. You're closed, Mr. Knight?
I ask for an aye vote.
Members looking for a motion to move this measure? Very good. It's been properly moved by Mr. Donnelly, seconded by Ms. Harkey. The measure is out on an A roll call. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Wessel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. AB 651 requires professional petition gathering firms to register with the Secretary of State's office and ensures that the residents of California.
Very good. The measure has been properly moved and seconded. It does enjoy a do pass recommendation. Mr. Wessel, do you have any witnesses in support?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Nicole Becker on behalf of Secretary of State Deborah Bowen in support.
Any additional witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
The Secretary of State projects that initial costs would be less than $5,000. It's anticipated these costs would be offset by the registration fee revenues collected from the petition firms.
Very good. Mr. Wessel, you're close.
Thank you. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Great. Thank you. The measure has been moved by Mr. Lara, seconded by Ms. Campos. The measure is out on a B roll call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lowenthal. Good morning, Ms. Lowenthal. You're presenting on Assembly Bill 312.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 312 allows a homeless person to sue for enhanced civil damages when they're a victim of hate-based violence. Unlike an enhanced criminal penalty, which would impose a financial burden on the state, this places the burden squarely where it belongs, on the shoulders of those who think that homeless people are fair game. I ask for your aye vote.
Very good. The bill's been moved by Mr. Bradford, seconded by Mr. Hall. Any witnesses in support?
I'm Dee Hamby with National Organization of Women, California, and we strongly support this bill.
Very good. Any additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
The Department of Fair Employment and Housing indicates any costs would be minor and absorbable within existing resources. However, the judicial branch indicates the bill creates a new cause of action, potentially increasing the court's caseload and contributing to the existing backlog in civil case proceedings. To the extent that this increases the additional cases, there would be pressures on the general fund.
Ms. Harkey.
Member Lowenthal, how do we determine that somebody's been attacked on their basis of homelessness?
That would be determined at the time someone goes to court for that crime.
Very good. Ms. Lowenthal, would you like to close on this measure?
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. The measure is out on a B. Roll call. Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Williams.
Oh, excuse me. I have one more bill that I'm presenting for Assemblymember Butler.
Oh, very good. Thank you for letting us know. The floor is yours, Ms. Lowenthal.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair and members. AB 475 updates current law regarding the type of electric vehicles that are qualified to use designated off-street parking facilities. Right now, the law applies only to battery electric vehicles and was enacted prior to the advent of the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. The author will accept the amendments to ensure that vehicles in designated spaces are engaged in the process of charging.
Move the bill.
Very good. Would you like to finish your presentation?
And not simply occupying spaces for the sake of convenience, and to grandfather in existing decals. This bill adds no new burden to local authorities or off-street parking operators, continues to provide operators control of their facilities, and offers an incentive for the new generation of electric vehicles. There is no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Lowenthal. Your first witness in support.
Mr. Chairman, members, Mark Watts. I'm here today on behalf of General Motors. We support this measure and encourage your support, too. Thank you.
Very good. Next witness, Department of Finance.
Costs to the DMV should be minor and absorbable. The DMV already issues a decal to eligible vehicles. The bill would simply expand the number of vehicles that qualify for the decal.
Very good. Thank you. The measure was moved by Mr. Gatto, seconded by Ms. Harkey. That measure is out on a roll call. Thank you very much. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I'm here to present my bill, which authorizes ABC to issue a new license. The new license is for off-sale retail wine selling. It's restricted to sales solicited and accepted by direct mail.
Very good. The bill's been moved by Mr. Hall, seconded by Ms. Harkey. Do you have witnesses in support, Mr. Williams?
I do.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Paul Cronenberg on behalf of Family Winemakers of California, the sponsors of the bill. We ask for your aye vote.
Very good. Next witness in support. Any witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance.
Costs to ABC should be minor and absorbable. There could be some insignificant loss of license fee revenue that results from the license holders that elect to transition to the new internet sales license and relinquish their existing combination license.
Very good. Mr. Williams, that measure is out on a roll call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Block. Would you like to waive presentation on Assembly Bill 620? That's a measure that's on the suspense, recommended for suspense?
Yes, we would.
Very good. Assembly 648 has a due pass recommendation. Mr. Block.
Yes, AB 648 requires that the applicant for a commutation notify the district attorney of the county in which a conviction occurred at least 30 days before the governor acts on a commutation. The district attorney would then be required to notify the victim and their family. This provides the opportunity for the victim and the district attorney to make a recommendation as to whether they support or oppose the commutation and the reasons why. AB 648 is about notification. It's about making sure that all parties have the opportunity to voice their concern over a potential change in sentencing. AB 648 also requires the governor to file a written report with the legislature regarding each reprieve or commutation that he or she is granted. The report also will be available to the public. The amended version of the bill before you deals only with commutations, not with pardons, in an effort to reduce the costs of the bill. It also makes clear that the report submitted to the legislature by the governor includes only applications that were granted. This report will be made available to the public as well. The costs in the bill are negligible. Only 14 commutations have been granted in the last 30 years. Sponsor of the bill is San Diego District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis, and with me here to testify in support and answer any questions are Gail Stewart-Brockman and Laura Tanney from the San Diego District Attorney's Office.
Very good. Your first witness.
Good morning, Chairman, and members of the committee. My name is Laura Tanney. I'm a Deputy District Attorney with the County of San Diego here on behalf of the sponsor of the bill, District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis. I've been a Deputy District Attorney for 22 years and currently am the Chief of the Appellate Division in the office. We're sponsoring this bill We have been working with the committee consultants who have recommended amendments that we have taken and are part of the bill before you today. This bill, as Assemblymember Block indicated, is not designed, nor does it interfere with the powers of the governor, which are granted by the Constitution to grant executive clemency, and in this case commutations. It does nothing to interfere with that power. What it does is provides 30 days notice to the district attorney's office by the applicant in order for the district attorney's office then to be able to create a recommendation and to provide notification to the victims. The victims notification of the victims is a minimal expense because the district attorney's office is already legally and morally obligated to contact victims through every stage of the criminal process. The bill also provides transparency by providing the legislature with the original application in addition to the existing law, which requires communication by the governor of the commutation. This would allow for verification of the veracity of the statements made to the governor by the applicant. We are asking for your support of this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association in support of the bill.
Very good. Department of Finance?
Our file is not informed by these latest amendments, but CDCR and Department of Justice have indicated that the bill would not result in any additional costs. We think the bill could create a reimbursable state mandate by requiring the local district attorneys to notify parties related to commutation. To the extent that that does, that could result in some general fund costs.
Very good. Any witnesses in opposition? Ms. Harkey, you had a comment or a question?
Yes, primarily for the author and maybe the district attorney's office. The bill does not include pardons. Is that for cost reasons?
That's strictly for cost reasons at the suggestion of the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Hearing and seeing no additional comments or questions, Mr. Block, would you like to close?
I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Very good. Members looking for a second for this measure? Very good. The measure has been seconded by Mr. Hall. That measure is out on an A roll call with Mr. Lara not voting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Block.
Thank you.
Mr. Swanson. Morning, Mr. Swanson. You are presenting on Assembly Bill 59, which is a candidate for suspense. Sir, the floor is yours.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. I was a little blinded by Mr. Hall's jacket. I'm going to put my... Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be very brief. I understand it's the candidate for suspense, but I'd like to present on AB 59 because it's a critically important issue for California working families. AB 59 would vastly improve the ability of family members to care for their loved ones. Care for their loved ones. I would gladly take a, but don't the chair. I respect the chair. The bill would add to the family leave policy ill grandparents, grandchildren, parents-in-law, siblings to the list of family members. This is for unpaid leave, and as many of our men and women in armed forces are returning home, and with the state of the economy, I think that this actually would save us money in the long run in terms of family members having the ability to care for other family members. I ask my witnesses to also be brief, but introduce themselves.
Sarah Flocks from the California Labor Federation in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Dee Hamby with National Organization for Women California, strongly in support of this bill.
Teresa Renkin, Alzheimer's Association, in support.
Very good. Any additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
The Department of Fair Employment and Housing indicates the bill would result in increased costs of approximately $400,000 general fund annually to fund resources necessary to investigate a greater number of complaints resulting from expanding the conditions under which an employee is entitled to protected leave.
Very good. First witness in opposition?
Megan Loper on behalf of California Hospital Association. Regretfully, we are in opposition.
Very good. Thank you. Any additional witnesses in opposition? Mr. Swanson, would you like to close?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would refer the committee to previous analysis of the bill, which showed a lot less costs to the bill since it's unpaid leave. And so this bill has been before appropriations before and successfully removed off suspense. And so I'm not sure it went into all this the current analysis, but I would refer you to at least two previous analyses that was far less money for this bill. Thank you.
Times are tough, Mr. Swanson. We will take a look at this. The cost pressure that we see here is about $400,000 and some other minor absorbable costs. So we're looking forward to working with you on this very important measure. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Mr. Achajian.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the committee and staff. I'm pleased to present AB 765, a bill that would provide protection for rape victims by clarifying that a person who initiates sexual activity by deceiving the victim into believing that he or she is the victim's cohabitant, living boyfriend or girlfriend, can be prosecuted of felony rape. AB 765 has received no votes. This bill would expand upon existing felony rape law and is anticipated to have minor state costs due to the infrequent nature of the crime. AB 765 is sponsored by Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office and supported by the California District Attorneys Association, the Santa Barbara Rape Crisis Center, Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Association, Office of the California Communities United Institute, and the Junior League State Public Affairs Committee. With me today is Joyce Dudley, the Santa Barbara District Attorney, and Monica Miller, representing the County of Santa Barbara. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Your first witness?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and members, Monica Miller on behalf of the County of Santa Barbara and also representing the DA's office. And unfortunately, she's not here just yet, so we apologize for that. But they did bring this bill forward to us. The code just has not kept up with modern day practices, and we believe this will really get us there. People who break into people's homes and rape them should be prosecuted appropriately, and with this bill, we will be able to do that. Thank you.
Very good. Next witness.
Mr. Chair and members, Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California District Attorneys Association in support of the bill.
Very good. Any additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
We don't have data as to the number of individuals who'd be convicted of these crimes and serve time in prison. For each conviction, however, the costs for an inmate in state prison would range from $25,000 to $50,000 per year.
Very good. Mr. Achajian, your close.
Thank you, sir. AB 765 corrects a deficiency in current law and will empower district attorneys in California to make sure that all rape victims receive adequate protection from offenders that will commit the crime of rape. I respectfully ask for your eye.
Ms. Harkey has a question.
I did. I'm sorry. Is this bill derived from some occurrence? Because I was surprised to see it be specifically, as it is. So I just would like to know what brought you to this.
Thank you, Ms. Harkey. And Ms. Will respond to the question.
Thank you for the question. Actually, there's one case in particular that did bring this issue forward, but it is something that prosecutors were not able to prosecute under, or DAs were not able to prosecute under. In Santa Barbara County, we actually had a young woman who had fallen asleep, and her boyfriend of 7 years, live-in boyfriend of 7 years, had come home late for work, had fallen asleep on the sofa. All of a sudden she was awoken, but she was still in a haze by what she thought was her boyfriend, anyhow, having intercourse with her. And in fact, when she opened her eyes, because she heard her boyfriend coughing in the next room, she was in fact being raped. Someone had come in through her bedroom window and was raping her, and they weren't able to prosecute to the full extent of the law, because you can only prosecute under the full extent of the law if the couple was married. Because they weren't married, they were cohabitants, which is what this bill is seeking to rectify. With this bill, they would have been able to fully prosecute. So he actually got off on a misdemeanor.
Very good. Mr. Donnelly has moved the bill. It has been seconded by Mr. Nielsen. That measure is out on an A roll call. Thank you, Mr. Achajian.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Skinner. Good morning, Ms. Skinner. You're presenting on, it looks like a suspense candidate, Assembly Bill 153?
No. I'm waiving presentation on all the bills except for 604.
Very good. Thank you. You may proceed on Assembly Bill 604.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members. 604 attempts to combat the spread of HIV viral hepatitis, and other deadly blood-borne diseases by allowing our Department of Public Health to authorize syringe exchange programs. All major national, state, and international health and medical associations have endorsed syringe exchange programs as a cost-effective, highly successful HIV control strategy. For example, the U.S. Center for Disease Control, the American Medical Association, and others. And just lastly, I know you all like to get through this quick, but I just want you to know that existing law authorizes needle exchange by a vote of city or county government. But the cities and counties that do not have not yet authorized needle exchange have the highest percent of AIDS-related cases.
Very good. Your first witness in support.
Good morning. Glenn Backus for Drug Policy Alliance, sponsors of the bill, to answer any questions the committee may have.
Next witness.
Libby Sanchez, California Public Defenders Association, in support.
Very good. Any additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
Costs to the Department of Public Health would be less than $50,000 a year in federal funds annually to develop regulations and initiate the program. If the scope of the program stays within 10 applications per year, those costs would be absorbable within that $50,000. If the applications are increased to 50 or more, costs would range somewhere in the neighborhood of $140,000 in federal dollars.
Very good. Ms. Skinner, you're close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. That measure is out on a B roll call. Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Cedillo. Very good. Mr. Cedillo, you are presenting on Assembly Bill 130. Would just like to let the audience know that we see your signs and we're asking for you to put them down. We don't hold up signs in committee, but thank you for measuring your support for Assembly Bill 130. Mr. Cedillo, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for this opportunity to present AB 130. It's a bill that, AB 130 and 131, but I want to focus on 130. It's a bill that you and I have worked on in the past. Very important bill for the state of California, a bill that will gives us an opportunity to do something that's both smart and just for the state of California. Your analysis indicates that it has no state costs for us, and I think that's very significant. It's part of why we want to present it singularly, because we have come to the point where we recognize, and I can tell you every time I talk to an educational leader or a business leader in this state, they keep telling me how we are going to be short of the intellectual capital that we need to sustain our economy. 2025, we will be 1 million BAs and BSs short, and we have to figure out where we're going to find the intellectual capital to lead the state. And I say to you that the intellectual capital, that those people who will have the capacity to be the engineers, the doctors, the scientists, the lawyers, the planners, all those that we will need, the researchers, are here, and they're amongst us. Now, we have in the past prohibited these young men and women who are brought here through no choice of their own, who play by the rules, learn our language, embrace our culture, who come from households that are taxpayers and they themselves pay taxes. We have prohibited them from applying for scholarships. This bill allows the University of California, the California State University System, and community colleges to permit these students to apply for scholarships that are funded by wholly private resources. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Cedillo, for your presentation. Do you have witnesses in support?
We do.
Very good. Your first witness in support. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman and members, George Soares on behalf of the Nisei Farmers League, an ag organization based in Fresno that has about 1,000 farmers as members, very ethnically diverse, African American, Hispanic, Asian, etc. We support this legislation by Assemblyman Cedillo. We think any opportunity that there is to educate residents of California through this means is going to be helpful for all of society, including California agriculture. So with that, we ask for your aye vote.
Very good. Additional witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Barry Bedwell. I'm president of the California Grape and Tree Fruit League. We agree with Mr. CDO that this is a smart thing to do for the state of California. It is about intellectual capital. It is about developing the knowledge and the expertise needed to move this state forward, and we certainly see that in agriculture as well. We rise in strong support of this bill.
Very good. Next witness in support.
Hello, my name is Mario De Leon. I'm co-chair of ideas at UCLA, and as a math and economics student, I can tell you that a long-term investment in California's education system will not only affect this year's budget, but the future years of California.
Very good. Thank you. Additional witnesses in support.
Hi, my name is Christopher Chavez. I'm a student at Cal State Long Beach and president of the California State Student Association, which represents the 433,000 students of the CSU, and we here emphatically support this bill.
Antonia Camo with the University of California Student Association, representing over 200,000 graduate and undergraduate students in support.
Kevin Wolfwork with the California Post-Secondary Education Commission in support.
Lori Nujura from the California Student Aid Commission in support.
Joseph Vigela on behalf of the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles in strong support.
Martha Zaragoza Diaz representing Californians Together and the California Association for Bilingual Education, and we're in strong support of the bill. Thank you.
Sergio Fanzon, once an undocumented student and now currently vice mayor for the city of Bell Gardens, and I support the bill.
Albert Parnell with the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, and we're in support.
Olga Treviza from League of United Latin American Citizens, representing the Lorenzo Patino Council here in Sacramento, membership and officers in support of this bill.
Alberto Gonzalez with the California Immigrant Policy Center in support of this bill.
Aquilina Soriano Versosa, Executive Director of the Filipino Workers Center and member of the Southern California Domestic Workers Coalition, and we are in support of this bill.
Erika Hernandez, in strong support of the bill. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Luna. I'm a Sac State alumni. I'm representing ADT and DREAM Act 2010, and I'm in full support of this bill. Thank you.
My name is Julio Gonzalez. I'm part of the Lorenzo Patino Council, a League of United Latin American Citizens, and we're here in support of the bill. Thank you.
Very good. Any additional witnesses in support? Members of the audience who are here on this bill, I'm sorry, let's go to the next witness in support.
Equality California in support.
Very good. Members of the audience who are here in support, if you would please stand for the benefit of the panel. Very good. Thank you for your attendance today. Any witnesses in opposition? Hearing and seeing none, the measure has been properly moved and seconded. Any questions from the panel? Hearing and seeing, Mr. Donnelly.
Mr. Cedillo.
Yes, sir.
This bill obviously has a lot of support among your followers and among a lot of the groups here that are represented here. At the same time, this is a zero-sum game. We have a limited number of resources. We have a $28 billion budget deficit. This is a fiscal hearing. So what do you have to say about the fact that there's going to be an opportunity cost? Because when there's only so many resources, legal residents, citizens, and legal immigrants are going to now have to compete with a larger pool of applicants. So you talk about investment, but isn't there, in essence, a disincentive that you're creating for people to do things the right way?
No. In a word, the answer is no. These are California students, California residents, and these are future California leaders. And so, as the committee has indicated, there are no fiscal costs to the state for this. These are amongst our best and brightest, play by the rules, embrace the language, do all that we ask of them, pay taxes, their families pay taxes, part of the social and cultural fabric of this state, and we should fully integrate them. We have no advantage in discriminating against them simply because of their legal status. I would refer you to a whole plethora of constitutional law, cite Judge Brennan and the Plyler v. Texas. It says there's no advantage to the state, to the nation, in segregating these students and castigating them into some life of poverty or second-class status. No advantage whatsoever to the state or the nation.
Yeah, I would agree with you that we don't want to segregate and we don't want people to be treated as second-class citizens. That's why we have the rule of law. And I believe that your bill, as well-intentioned as it is, undermines the rule of law, and that is a cost to every citizen and every taxpayer and everyone who stands up and believes in the principles that founded this nation. Thank you.
I'm glad you brought up the question of the rule of law, because in fact, what I'm asking for us is to comply with the rule of law. So we start with the 14th Amendment, then we move from the 14th Amendment, we go to, in fact, tomorrow will be the 64th anniversary of Mendes versus the State of Westminster, the precursor to Brown versus Board of Education, which says separate but equal is unequal. So that's the precursor, talking about the rule of law. From that, we move into the 70s and 80s, where we see the development of this specific question on the rule of law as it relates to the undocumented community, and we have the case of Plyler. And as I told you, what Justice Brennan said, speaking for the majority in Plyler, in terms of the rule of law, there's no benefit with respect to the rule of law as it relates to the state or the nation to discriminate against these undocumented students. Then we move from there to our experiences to try to challenge that precedent in Proposition 187. Of course, this state, difficult similar time period, difficult economics, tried to go that route. We found a lot of divisiveness, division of families, not a positive experience for the state of California. And we also found, as a matter of law, that that was enjoined. And so, as a matter of law, these students here have equal rights to all students. A student is a student is a student. And a future leader of this state and this nation is what we need, and these students provide us that opportunity.
If you read the entire Plyer versus Doe decision, the court actually said that they are not conferring a right. So, yes, they allowed the K through 12 education and said that it couldn't be denied, but they also said we are not explicitly conferring a right. And I'm simply saying, since this is not a policy hearing and a fiscal hearing,
right,
that there is a cost here. I'm disagreeing with the fiscal people here in saying that there is a real cost, and the taxpayers have a real issue with this, and I think that needs to be on the record. So,
all right, no, it should be on the record, because we had this fiscal discussion when we discussed this in the policy committee. You brought to our attention that you came from another state to take advantage of the University of California, and you asked to distinguish that from these students, and the distinction was made. These students come from California families. Their families pay taxes. Their commitment is to this state. They didn't come to this state to go to the University of California, but they have been admitted, they have played by the rules, they have been admitted, and they're committed to the state. And so these students who pay taxes and whose families have paid taxes and made an investment and paved the way for their presence.
Right. I came to the state, right, and I paid 3 times the tuition, which is what we require.
Because you were an out-of-state student.
You are not holding these students to that standard. You're giving them.
No.
You want to erase the line between legal and illegal. I understand.
No, because
that.
you came here to take advantage of this fine University of California. That's fine.
I did not come to take advantage. I came to contribute. I actually paid.
Gentlemen, we are entering a colloquy. There are other members who would like to ask questions. Mr. Donnelly, if you feel compelled to, I will recognize you a second time. But in the meantime, we will go to Mr. Lara.
Senator Cedillo, thank you so much for bringing this important piece of legislation. And since it is a fiscal committee, I want to remind the committee that many of these students and their parents, whether we like it or not, pay thousands of dollars in taxes every year and get nothing in return. And I would like to also comment that these students represent the best and the brightest. And if we are to compete in a global economy, we must ensure that all of our students have an equal say and an equal opportunity to pursue a college education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lara. Before we go to Mr. Blumenfield, Department of Finance, do you have a file on this measure?
Speaking solely from a fiscal perspective, the bill could result in cost pressures on UC and CSU scholarship funds to the extent that it would limit the amount of financial aid that could be provided to other financially needy students. The UC estimates the bill could result in scholarship costs of $300,000 in 2012-13. No information is available from the CSU. However, Finance estimates the CSU scholarship costs of approximately $290,000 in 2012-13. We do not believe that there will be a fiscal effect on the community colleges.
Very good. And we disagree because they are not state funds, and our analysis indicates that there is no direct state cost. Mr. Blumenfield.
I just wanted to follow up, since Mr. Donnelly brought up the question of opportunity cost. I wanted to ask you, what is the opportunity cost when you put a ceiling on a child's ability to move forward and you try to crush their dreams? Is there an opportunity cost to the state in that situation?
You know, discussing this, I think the court talked about what were the advantages to the state if we create a scenario that forces people towards unemployment, forces people towards crime, forces people towards poverty. And I think there are extraordinary costs for the state, and this is not what the state needs, and nor does it benefit from structurally designing a two-tiered system that those are the results.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this forward.
Very good. Assemblymember Campos.
I also want to thank you, Mr. Cedillo, for Assemblymember Cedillo, for bringing this forward, and I appreciate the question that Mr. Assemblymember Blumenfield asked you, because I think the reality is we tend to forget that if we're not educating our own population and our own workforce, then we are not able to provide employees to our future workforce. And if we think about California, we have always been on the cutting edge of technology and biotech. And if we're not, as you stated earlier in your comments, educating the brightest pupils in California, then we are not going to be able to provide the workforce for California's future. And as I look out into the audience, I see the future workforce. I see our future sciences, doctors, and innovators. And in order for us to be able to not fall into the scenario where we have a high unemployment and we have a workforce that is not educated, we need to make sure that we're providing those opportunities from a fiscal standpoint. And I appreciate your courage and your willingness to bring this forward in the current climate that we're facing with people that believe that our undocumented residents in California are not part of our community, and they are. And so I thank you for your courage.
Thank you.
Mr. Gatto.
So I support this bill, and I thank you for bringing it. I'm particularly heartened by the fact that there are no state costs. What I do want to do is do the rare thing, and that's address the audience here for a little bit and just encourage everybody to continue the fight at the federal level. Until there is federal immigration reform, we are in a position of, as a state, trying to work for patches. And I think, as you noted, as everybody on the panel has noted, these are the best and brightest. These are people who bust their behinds and do things right and go and try to get an education. And, you know, I was reading an LA Times article a couple weeks ago about a gentleman who worked several jobs, got through UCLA Law School as an undocumented fellow. And as someone who did that myself, you know, I went to night law school. I know how hard that is. And our country should be welcoming people who, I mean, this has been a principle of immigration law for generations, that we should welcome people who do things right and try to get an education. And this gentleman is having a hard time finding a job because he can't work here. So I know the bill's author has been a tireless advocate at the federal level as well. I'm sure you will continue. I just encourage everybody in the audience to continue your energy, petition the federal government, make the point that the best and brightest in this country should be welcomed, particularly those who go through law school, because it's hard. And if you can get through law school as a language learner and working jobs, you should be welcomed into this country as a lawful citizen. So thank you very much.
Very good. Ms. Harkey.
Mr. Cedillo, I would like to make a comment that kind of bridges Mr. Donnelly with Mr. Gatto. I've had several of these students in my office, and I discussed with them in great detail the issue that they face. Some of them are very unfortunate in their experience to be undocumented because people are actually here, but that's probably not the case for a broad variety of the students. I had a gentleman that went to Cal State Fullerton that actually completed with flying colors, and unfortunately he was from Croatia and had to go back. He could not seek employment even though we had volunteered. He was on a legal visa. Even though we had volunteered to offer employment to him, my husband's office had. And so it's very unfortunate the way immigration law works, but I don't think that we can continue to ignore it. And if you want a law to change, I think you change, or you don't avoid it, because then you become lawless. You need to change the law. This is a federal It's an issue of a federal nature that has been totally ignored by both sides of the aisle because it's too hot to touch. Well, I think that it's not too hot to touch, and quite honestly, I think that constantly whittling away at it and creating independent exceptions is not the way to go about it. I think there's a great deal of issue, I know, on the border states, of which Southern California is a border state, Northern California not so much. Arizona, Texas, they all have different methods with dealing with the issue, but we cannot deny that there is a problem, and I think it needs to be addressed. There used to be a way of sponsorship. There used to be a Bracero program. These things are not available anymore, and so I would suggest all of you in the audience to please seek federal redress to get some form of documentation and legal status for your own good and for that of everyone that comes after you. I think we need to be able to do this, but we can't just allow a policy that exempts. We've got high unemployment now. We've got extreme cost pressures, and some of our schools have some of the lowest rankings in the nation. And we're probably trying to integrate way too much into a cost pressure situation. So I can't support your bill. I know you're bringing it forward for using private funds, but I can see where this is going. And I think you need to address a larger issue, unless, of course, you wish to just keep this as a constant political football. So I think, we definitely have opened up the debate on this floor. And I would encourage you to work with the people that you represent to try to do something at the federal level that protects the state, the resources, and the people within it, as well as find some sort of resolution for the border issue, because it is a huge problem for us. Thank you.
Senator Cedillo, would you like to close?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to bring this before you, and thank you and your staff both for the analysis and our efforts to make sure that we were able to bring particularly AB 130, a bill that really has no cost to the state. It really seems an absurd idea that we would make it difficult for someone to receive private scholarships after we had admitted those students to our fine institutions of higher education. I thank you and I thank the committee for your consideration, and I ask for an aye vote.
Very good. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Fuentes?
Aye.
Aye. Harkey? No. Harkey, no. Blumenfield?
Blumenfield, aye.
Blumenfield, aye. Bradford?
Aye.
Bradford, aye. Calderon? Campos?
Aye.
Campos, aye. Davis? Donnelly?
No.
Donnelly, no. Gatto?
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Hall?
Aye.
Hall, aye. Hill?
Aye.
Hill, aye. Lara?
Aye.
Lara, aye. Mitchell? Nielsen? No. Nielsen, no. Norby? Solario? Wagner.
Very good, Mr. Cedillo. The measure is on call as we await Mr. Calderon, Mr. Davis, or Mr. Solorio to attend the committee. Thank you very much for your presentation. Assembly Bill 131, it's a suspense candidate. Will you be presenting on that measure?
I don't think it's necessary. Ditto the previous arguments and presentation, and I appreciate and recognize that it's an appropriate candidate for suspense, and we'll discuss that at the more appropriate.
Very good. We're looking forward to working with you on Assembly Bill 131. This will serve as a reminder to Mr. Calderon, Mr. Davis, and Mr. Solorio that we do have a matter on call, so if they can make their way to the committee room so that we may pass out Assembly Bill 130 promptly. Thank you again, Senator Cedillo, for your presentation. We are now moving on to Assemblymember Portantino. Mr. Portantino, you are presenting on Assembly Bill number 2, which is a candidate for suspense.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could
yours.
do AB 390 first, with your indulgence. I have a witness for AB 390, which is not a suspense candidate.
Very good. Assembly Bill 390 does have a due pass recommendation. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. AB 390 is a simple measure which will codify a current DMV policy and statute. Specifically, AB 390 will require DMV to issue renewal notices to individuals alerting them of the upcoming expiration of their California ID. While this may seem like a basic courtesy to you and I, for a blind individual who can't see when their card is about to expire, it is an essential service which will allow them to go about their lives without fear of being without a valid ID. As the analysis points out, AB 390 will have very minor and absorbable costs from DMV, and with me today to provide additional testimony and answer any technical questions is Frank Welty, representing the California Council of the Blind.
Here we go. Thank you. Frank Welty, Director of Advocacy and Governmental Affairs for the California Council of the Blind. Just to underscore Assemblyman Portantino's point, I would give you a little quiz that none of you have to answer out loud. How many of you, without looking, can tell me the date of your driver's license expiration? Now, I'm assuming that most of you probably would have to look, and so that's why renewal notices are important. Also, renewal notices represent an opportunity for the Department of Motor Vehicles to save costs by encouraging more people, especially card holders, to renew their cards online or by mail, which reduces the pressure on long lines and costs of operating those very busy and crowded DMV offices. So we strongly encourage your aye vote on this measure.
Very good. Any additional witnesses in support?
Yes.
Witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
DMV estimates no additional cost with this bill.
Very good. Members, the Chair will entertain a motion to move this measure. Ms. Harkey moves the bill. Second. Ms. Harkey has a question.
I just have a quick comment. We had a couple members in Policy Committee that determined that this was already being implemented and did not want to establish it as a mandate. Other than that, I think you have broad-based support. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Members, a second? Very good. The bill has been seconded by Mr. Bradford. Members, we are going to have a Republican roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. It's now, that measure is out on an A roll call. Very good. Mr. Portantino.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, for letting me take bills out of order. I appreciate that respect for my witness. AB 7, which I believe is the 9th time I've introduced a measure to freeze the pay of California's highest paid employees. I'm presenting this bill because I think in a time when we're looking to help solve the state's budget crisis and we're facing, we've just made billions of dollars in cuts and we're continuing to face a several billion-dollar deficit when we have the opportunity to save the state some money, and in this case some estimates have it being about $20 million, we should not be putting this measure on suspense. We should be sending it to the floor so we can enact those savings. This legislation has recently, AB 7, as before you, will freeze the salaries for state employees who earn over $150,000 per year. I actually have a set of amendments which we're going to be putting across the desk to lower that threshold to $100,000. Over the past 3 years, I've been informed that freezing these salaries and bonuses will not save enough money, so that's why we're lowering the threshold to $100,000. Let me repeat, in a time of budget deficits and a large unemployment rate and several thousand California students who are facing uncertainty through the budget cuts, it makes no sense to be allowing the administrators at the Cal State system to be giving out raises. It makes no sense for the CalPERS money managers to be getting bonuses when we're making it harder for kids to go to school and we're making horrendous cuts in social services. And just months ago, the President of the United States issued an executive order freezing the pay and bonuses of top government officials at the federal level who exceed $100,000. So we wanted to be consistent with what's going on in the federal government as they choose to tighten their belt and share the burden of getting the federal government under fiscal order. This measure will be in effect until 2014 and is expected to save tens of millions of dollars by freezing these salaries. Again, this makes money for the state, does not cost the state money, and so I do not respectfully believe it should go on suspense. And I'd like to give you a couple statistics. Despite record losses in 2008, CalSTRS awarded in 2009 an incentive award of $208,000 to one employee in addition to his $330,000 base salary. For 2009, virtually all of CalPERS investment managers were awarded bonuses of more than $10,000 each, several earning bonuses of more than $100,000 in fiscal year 2008-2009. The cash awards were distributed as the fund lost $59 billion. Again, raises have been granted to administrators at Cal State system while we're making it more difficult to our students to go to college. We're giving out bonuses. We're laying people off. We're furloughing people. We're making horrendous cuts. We have an opportunity with AB 7 to save the state millions of dollars. It's unconscionable that this bill does not go to the floor for immediate action so we can begin to save the state. So I'm here to ask that we pass it out of this committee today and beginning to save the state money and be consistent with federal government efforts to do the same thing.
Very good. Department of Finance, do you have a file on this measure?
Our comments would be slightly revised given Assemblymember Portantino's reference to amendments. However, within the context of the $150,000 per year cap that was within the bill, DPA has identified very limited savings because of current bargaining agreements that are in place until 2013, and there are few employees that make in excess of $150,000. Based on these amendments, we would have to reevaluate the impact of the bill accordingly. CalSTRS and CalPERS have both indicated opposition to the bill, while CalSTRS has identified potential savings of $1.5 million to $3 million as a result of eliminating incentive bonuses. They've also expressed a concern that there is a potential loss of hundreds of millions in annual investment earnings associated with the reduced ability to recruit and retain highly effective and highly qualified investment managers. Our perspective is, given the short period of the bill, we do not necessarily agree with CalSTAR's estimated investment losses.
Very good. Do you have any witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Ms. Harkey?
I'd just like to say that the problem I have with it is it's a little bit prejudicial because it doesn't affect collective bargaining agreements, but I think that's probably for legal reasons. I understand the competitiveness argument, but clearly some of the investment advisors have been less than adequate, should we say, on a lot of the investing. So I do support your efforts and I support your bill, but it is going on suspense, and I encourage you to continue to work to try to create a little bit of sanity in the bonusing system if we can.
Mr. Chair, if I could respond? I think the best way to put the sanity in the bonus situation is to do away with the bonuses. And the only way we're going to do that is through law. And as far as who this applies to, we can't undo a contract. All we can do is apply this to who we have the legal right to apply it to. So it's written to capture as many people throughout the state of California that we can capture. So it doesn't carve anybody out. It just says we can only capture those people who we can capture. And again, if this body is serious about saving money, here's a way we can do it and be consistent with the federal efforts on the same issue, send a message to those $35,000 a year state workers who were squeezing and furloughing and hurting, send a message to those students who were making it harder to go to college that we're not going to let those administrators continue to get raises. This sends that message and actually saves the state money, so I question why it's going to suspense.
Very good. We will take that as your close, Mr. Portantino. Do you care to present on Assembly Bill 2 also a candidate for suspense?
No, we're going to waive presentation on the other suspense candidates, but again, this one I would respectfully ask for a vote.
Very good. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Portantino. That dispenses with your items. Mr. Cedillo's measure, Assembly Bill 130, is on call. Madam Secretary, let's go ahead and call the roll call for the absent members.
Calderon, Davis, Mitchell, Solario,
Solorio, aye.
Solario, aye.
Very good. Mr. Cedillo, your measure is out. Very good. We will now go on to... Very good. Let's go ahead and go to our committee members.
Calderon, aye.
Very good. On Assembly Bill 130, Mr. Calderon has lodged his support. Aye vote. Very good. That measure is still out. Ms. Campos, would you like to present on your measure?
I would. Thank you.
Well, come on. Ms. Campos, you are presenting on Assembly Bill 501, which is a candidate for suspense. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair and members. At a time when employee unions are under assault on a national level, I am proud to present AB 501, which would clarify the true intention of Government Code Section 3540.
It's a suspense candidate, members.
I appreciate the enthusiasm. Public school employees have a right to join organizations of their own choice. This bill would also clarify that any person employed by the JPA that is composed of one or more public school employers is a public school employee. This bill stems from two flawed public employee relation boards decisions that prevented the organization of certain types of school employees and prevented the organization of employees of a joint powers authority comprised of public school entities. A school employer should not be given the exemption from complying with the current law and allowing its employees to receive union representation just because a school employer joins with another school employer to deliver services. I am asking the members of this committee to consider this bill merely closing the loophole of existing law that has been exploited by bypass complying with current labor law. I do have witnesses.
Very good. Your first witness.
Mr. Chairman and members, Jai Suk Prasad with the California School Employees Association. We are co-sponsor and strong support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff Freitas with the California Federation of Teachers, also co-sponsors, and want to reiterate that this is clarification of the original intent of the ERA law, and to clarify as to part of the analysis is that in the past years, as we've been cutting education, negotiations have actually shown cuts to people's salary to protect the educational programs in some of the districts, such as in LA School District. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Next witness in support.
Michelle Castro, the Service Employees International Union, also in support.
Sarah Flox with the California Labor Federation, also in support of the bill. Thank you.
Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Department of Finance.
The bill could result in additional costs in the millions of dollars for local education agencies statewide to the extent that collective bargaining rights provided to additional groups of school district, JPA, and community college organization employees result in higher personnel costs. These additional costs may in turn offset any efficiencies in providing services such as home-to-school transportation that could otherwise be achieved by forming a JPA. By extending the bargaining rights to additional groups, this bill would also increase reimbursable state mandate costs under existing school and community college collective bargaining mandates, and existing costs for that mandate range into the low 20 millions based on 2008-9 district claims.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Campos, would you like to close on this measure?
Well, I think what I really want to leave with the committee is that what this bill would do is it would give the rights to all employees that are in a school to be able to have an opportunity to join a union so that they can have representation. So I would hope that as we move forward that it would be considered to move forward as well to have a discussion on the floor.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Campos, for your presentation. The item will remain on the suspense file. We will move on to Committee Member Solorio, who also is chairing the Insurance Committee right now. So we'll thank Mr. Alejo for his patience and have Mr. Solorio present so he may resume his duties as chair of the Insurance Committee.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This item is a candidate for suspense. I just wanted to put it on your radar that the intent of this bill is to reduce the amount of complex and burdensome and confusing worker compensation notices for employees. The amount that would be spent to do some clarification work would not be resources taken out of the general fund, but this is something that both on the employer side as well as the employee side, there'd be benefit to clarifying and simplifying all the workers' compensation notices at the workplace. I hope that you will favorably consider this as you're going through suspense, given that there are no general fund dollars and that there's broad support for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member Sarah Flox from the California Labor Federation. We're in strong support of this bill. Injured workers don't need to go through a complex process, and this would simplify the process and make it easier for them during the time when they are injured. Thank you.
Very good. Any additional witnesses in support or opposition? Department of Finance?
Finance is opposed to the bill, citing estimated costs of $1 to $2 million for the workers' compensation admin revolving fund associated with developing the required booklet, increased postage, revising the regulations, and providing information on the
Very good. Mr. Solorio, would you like to close on this measure?
Again, just ask for your consideration, given these are not general fund costs and that there's labor and employer support for the bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. We will work with you on that measure. Mr. Alejo. Very good, Mr. Alejo. You are presenting on behalf of President Pro Tem Steinberg.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I wasn't here to be here a few minutes ago. I was caught up in another hearing, but I just want to thank you for supporting the DREAM Act as well as co-author of that bill. But members, today I'm here presenting today on SB 104 on behalf of Senate Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg. SB 104, also known as the Fair Treatment for Farm Workers Act, is Senator Steinberg's third attempt to give the hardest working individuals in California the opportunity and another option to organize themselves within a labor union. SB 104 permits agricultural employees to select their labor representatives by submitting a petition to the Agricultural Labor Relations Board, the ALRB, along with the representation card signed by a majority of the bargaining unit. Once the validity of the cards is confirmed by the board, the labor organization would have to be certified as the exclusive bargaining representative. The purpose of this bill is to give farm workers of this state protections in the fields. I understand that this committee considers the fiscal impact of bills, but I also ask you to consider 17-year-old Maria Isabel Vasquez Jimenez, who died in the grape fields in 2008. She was killed because of her employer's intentional disregard of the heat regulations and the state's lack of enforcement of those laws. The plea deal that resulted embodies all that is wrong with our system. Those responsible for Maria's death had been fined in 2006, but Cal OSHA never collected the fine and did not ensure that the law was being followed. Maria Isabel was killed 2 years later, and those responsible were only sentenced to community service. Community service for manslaughter. I don't need to be an attorney to know that this unconscionable result is a disservice to our system of justice. So instead, I ask that you give the hardworking men and women of this state who put food on our tables a protection that actually works, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. Your first witness in support?
Esperanza Ross on behalf of the United Farm Workers. We're sponsors of this bill, and this is our fifth year on this journey. In fact, it's been 7 bills in total in the last 5 years that we've been trying on behalf of the farm workers' right to organize. We ask for your support.
Very good. Next witness in support.
Sarah Flox from the California Labor Federation. We strongly support this bill. It will simply give farm workers the right to choose whether or not they want a union, free of coercion, intimidation, and violence. And we ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Very good. Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Barry Bedwell, President of the California Grape and Tree Fruit League. This piece of legislation unequivocally removes the right to a secret ballot by farm workers. I have not heard, while this is not a policy discussion, the issue is the rights of the farm employees. At the very least, this bill would cause a change in regulations and procedures that should be studied for its true physical impact. And I would ask that at the very least this be put on suspense. At current, the process seems very, very rushed. So I respectfully ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Crystal Jack on behalf of the Alliance of Western Milk Producers, California Citrus Mutual, Western Agricultural Processors Association, Nisei Farmers League, and others, all in opposition.
Very good.
Kelly McKechnie on behalf of Western Growers. We echo the statements of Mr. Bedwell, and we're also in opposition. Thank you.
Good morning. Steve Cruz on behalf of the Family Winemakers of California, also in opposition.
Morning. Justin Oldfield, California Cattlemen's Association, also in opposition.
Jennifer Barrera, California Chamber of Commerce, also in opposition.
Additional witnesses in opposition? Department of Finance?
The Agricultural Labor Relations Board indicates that there could result in some level of savings if the majority sign-up petition election procedure is used in lieu of the current secret ballot selection procedure. However, in the event that there is additional workload associated with investigating and litigating complaints, the extent to which that savings would offset the increased workload needs to be investigated at this time.
Very good. Members, we'll entertain a motion to move this measure. Very good. It's been moved by Mr. Calderon. It's been seconded by Mr. Blumenfield. Would you like to close, Mr. Alejo?
I'll close very briefly. I just want to be very clear that this bill doesn't eliminate the secret ballot process. It simply adds a new process as an option. And members, this will be the most important farm worker rights legislation to come before you during our tenure in the State Assembly, and ask for your aye vote.
I apologize, Mr. Alejo. Mr. Donnelly has a question or a comment.
Mr. Alejo, just wondering if there's another way to protect the rights of farm workers with maybe creating a guest worker program that would give them some legal status and some protections of California law, as opposed to what you're doing here, which is passing a law to essentially not allow them to, have a secret ballot, which offers protections. So, and it seems to me that wasn't Cesar Chavez against this particular idea that you're advancing?
Absolutely not. I believe my family was very involved in the United Farm Workers Movement, that if Cesar Chavez was alive today, he'd be here in this committee asking you to support this legislation. A lot of this has been a long journey in terms of trying to improve the status of our hardworking farm workers throughout our state. A lot of different things have been tried, but the consensus was among the farm worker rights community and farm workers themselves that this is the best way to improve their standard of living.
Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Davis.
When we look at the challenge that we have in the state of California in terms of civil rights, perhaps that this is probably one of our most civil rights significant issues in California today. I've always been told that the role of labor has been in this country to demand the respect for workers. And when we look at the numerous issues of treatment, of mistreatment that have occurred to farm workers, the case is very clear. We have not done our work in the legislature in terms of holding accountable those organizations and associations that have responsibility for the work conditions of farm workers in this state. And as painful as it is, because we all depend upon agriculture, and certainly this is where our food comes from on one hand, on the other hand, I think the morality of our state is as such that we care about our citizens and how they are treated. We can't have our cake and eat it too. We have a series of issues that we care about on one hand, and then when we look at some of the issues that are overlooked, particularly in the agricultural community on the other hand, it begs the question of if we believe injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. King said that. I believe that, and I think that certainly Cesar Chavez would agree with that. So clearly, here is a case where we have injustice, as I see it, in my experience, that we have not really managed effectively. And so I think that this bill will clearly get us on the right track to helping to make sure that that happens.
Very good. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Davis. Mr. Alejo had previously closed on the measure. Thank you for presenting that on behalf of President Pro Tem Steinberg. That measure is out on a B roll call. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Very good. We will move on to committee members while we wait for Mr. Bell to present on his bill. Mr. Calderon, would you like to present on your measure? In the meantime, Ms. Mitchell, we did not record your vote on Assembly Bill 130, so we will call the roll again on Assembly Bill 130, Mr. Cedillo's DREAM Act. Madam Secretary?
Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye.
Very good. Thank you for that strong aye, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Calderon, you are presenting on a due pass recommended bill, Assembly Bill 252.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members, this bill attempts to correct an unintended consequence of previous legislation, AB 2293, which allowed exceptions to the law that would allow distilled spirit manufacturers and wine growers to provide products directly to consumers at invitation events within controlled substances. This bill left out certain distillers, spirit retailers and manufacturers, so we want to include those, and that's all the bill does.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Calderon. The bill has been properly moved by Mr. Hall, seconded by Mr. Lara. First witness in support.
Mr. Chairman and members, Gavin McHugh, on behalf of the Distilled Spirits Council, we support the bill. Thank you.
Very good. Witnesses in opposition, Department of Finance.
Our estimate is that this bill would have a negligible impact on ABC.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Calderon. That measure is out on an A roll call. We will proceed now to Mr. Hall. Would you like to present on your measures? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to waive presentation on AB 692.
Very good. That leaves Assembly Bill 227.
Mr. Chair and members, AB 227 takes a proactive approach to fight cyberbullying and protect students using the internet in in California schools. There are minor and absorbable costs associated with this measure. There is no opposition to this measure, and I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. Any witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? The measure has been moved by Ms. Campos, seconded by Mr. Lara. Department of Finance?
There would be costs to the Department of Education of approximately $25,000 to $50,000 annually to comply with the provisions of an almost identical bill last year, and our estimate is based on that. SDE would incur staffing costs associated with developing the guidelines, but the bill would certainly require increased staff time at the local level to develop the new components and incorporate them into local education technology plans. It is, however, difficult to project the incremental fiscal impact on local districts. These costs, however, may extend into the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands statewide.
I disagree.
But the incremental costs may be realized over several years.
Very good. That measure is wanting a it's been properly moved and seconded. Mr. Donnelly.
Mr. Hall, now, it seems like there's a number of bills on this. This is already law in many areas, and some of this is duplicative, and it seems like you've got sort of a bill in want of a cause or something. What is the point of passing more regulations when essentially these are the duties of parents, because you're trying to control people's smartphones, their mobile devices? What does that have to do with education, and why are we looking to legislate when we just really need parents to parent?
Well, kids go to school. They use computers in school. They're on the internet in school. Cyberbullying takes place in school. So it's important and incumbent upon us as legislators to make sure that students, when they're in school, they're protected.
I understand that about the computers, but I'm talking about the smartphones.
Smartphones, any other device that's been used in schools, likewise.
So it just seems like with the fiscal impact that they're talking about, this is not the purview of the government at all. It's really the role of parents.
I understand. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I also have a witness in support.
Very good. Your first witness?
I'm Matt Bunch. I'm from Equality California, and we're in support of this bill.
Very good. The measure does enjoy a due pass recommendation. It's been properly moved and seconded. Hearing and seeing no additional comments from the committee, that measure is out on a B roll call. Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, sir.
We will move on to Ms. Mitchell. As Ms. Mitchell approaches the podium, we understand that Mr. Bell is waiving presentation on his suspense items. This is the final item aside from the consent calendar.
Oh, my goodness.
Ms. Mitchell, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chair, you saved the best for last. I am pleased to be here, colleagues, to present AB 389, hemophilia use of clotting agents. The point of this bill is really a parity issue. AB 839 would establish standards of service for pharmacies that deliver blood clotting products and related equipment for home use to people with hemophilia and other blood clotting disorders. I say it's a parity issue because currently publicly funded pharmacies, those that receive Medi-Cal, already have standards of care that they must comply with that are included in their contracts. It's private pay patients who don't have the same coverage. This is critical because clotting products are very costly and are very delicate. And if pharmacies deliver them at the home, leave them on your porch, they're not appropriately refrigerated, they can't be used by the patients who need them. So again, the lack of handling standards has resulted in some patients enduring difficulties in receiving these life-saving products. Here with me today to discuss some of the issues related to this bill is Terry Hill, representing the Hemophilia Council of California.
Very good. Your first witness in support.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members, Terry Calgar-Hill on behalf of the Hemophilia Council of California. We are the sponsors of this important standards bill that will provide parity and equity for the private patients as well as the public pay patients. People with hemophilia often also have been exposed to HIV and AIDS, those older patients who are now in their 40s who were exposed when the clotting factor was primarily plasma-based. That was before the products were protected and HIV-free. Those gentlemen who are alive today are using clotting factor that is much more highly purified. It's a recombinant biologic product that is delivered to their home, and they infuse at home. So we're saving costs on the system by having them receive the clotting factor at home, but again, we don't want to ever have the same thing that happened in the late 80s when the clotting agents were not protected. Again, it's a parity issue. We've worked hard with the manufacturers, with the pharmacies, and with the families, and we have bipartisan support, and we urge your aye vote today. There is no cost to the bill.
Very good. Next witness.
Kristen Hare, California Academy of Family Physicians, in support of this bill.
Thank you.
David Gonzalez on behalf of the Plasma Protein Therapeutics Association, in strong support.
Les Shepard, representing CSL Behring, in support.
Very good. Any additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Hearing and seeing none. Department of Finance.
The Pharmacy Board indicates an increased number of complaint investigations may arise pursuant to the provisions of the bill. However, the Board affirms that the workload will be absorbable within the resources of the Consumer Protection Enforcement Initiative.
Very good. The bill has been properly moved and seconded. We will call for a Republican roll call.
Harkey?
No.
Harkey, no. Donnelly? No. Donnelly, no. Nielsen? Norby? Wagner?
Pass it.
Very good. That measure is out. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell, for your presentation.
Thank you very much, and I'll waive presentation on my AB 989.
Very good. Thank you. We appreciate that. The only item before us now, members, is the consent calendar. May I entertain a motion to move that? Very good. The consent calendar has been moved by Mr. Hall, seconded by Mr. Blumenfield. The consent calendar is approved on a roll call. Very good, members. Seeing no additional business, we are adjourned. Thank you.